Breakfast, the most important meal of the day. Not all breakfasts are created equally, of course. Mostly, for me, porridge and fruit or cheese and toast are my mainstays. But at other times I do like to indulge a little bacon butty, perhaps, scrambled egg with smoked salmon on a bagel, or even fruit cake. However, were I alive in late medieval England, being a middle-aged scholar of somewhat lowly heritage, I would not have expected to eat breakfast. If I worked in the fields, well, I probably would have tucked into some bread and ale and maybe a little bit of cheese. But this I would probably have done some considerable time after starting my labour, not within 20 minutes of waking up. Sadly, for many of folk, including lowly scholars, it was necessary to wait until the main meal of the day, prandium or lunch. It's true, this meal was often eaten late morning, perhaps as early as 10. But I'm an early riser and so would have been awake several hours before anything passed my lips. Had I been of the upper classes, however, let's say Henry Percy, 5th Earl of Northumberland, who straddled the end of the medieval and the Tudor periods in England, then I could have looked forward to a hearty breakfast, dining on boiled mutton and boiled beef, and on Saturdays salt cod and buttered eggs, or if it were Lent, smoked or pickled herrings or sprats, all served with plenty of bread and washed down with wine. In a monastic context, children and invalids were given a kind of breakfast known as mixtum. I don't get too excited. This may have been nothing more than some bread and a beverage, especially in the early centuries of Benedictine monasticism before the Norman conquest. Though later, in some monastic houses, the mixtum came to include cheese and milk, or possibly even porridge and soup. According to one source, in the later Middle Ages, a soup, often including eggs, was common. Notwithstanding my aforementioned tragic medieval status, I have gone in search of something from the medieval cookery works which I can enjoy right now in the 21st century for breakfast. And what I have to share with you is a dish of fried compressed egg curds, better known as lardes. Now, I must confess, I have no evidence that lardes were actually eaten for breakfast in elite circles in medieval Europe. The dish does appear on lunch menus in the haute bourgeois work known as Le Ménagier de Paris, but it's not mentioned in any of the English menus I've read, including those associated with entertaining Richard II, who's often the focus of my research. Since, however, lardes does appear in Richard's official cookery treatise, Form of Curry, at least some persons in his household must have been eating it, though whether at breakfast, lunch or supper, we simply have no way of knowing. But this recipe has long fascinated me, and since experimenting with it, I've decided it's one of my favourite medieval dishes, and it's perfect for a 21st century breakfast. Well, my breakfast. To make a bicoloured lardes, you need 2 good-sized heavy-bottomed saucepans. In each, you place a litre of unhomogenised full-fat milk. A tip: do shake your milk well before pouring it into your pans, as this distributes the fat molecules evenly and makes it easier to get out of the bottle if the cream is sitting on the top. This is especially the case if using Jersey milk. Next, prepare your colours. I'm going for just 2 colours today, green and yellow, though the Form of Curry recipe gives 6 colours to choose from, as well as green and yellow, white, red, purple and black. If you want to learn more about these colours, I've produced a short video for my premium content subscribers. So just go to my website and subscribe. and enjoy all the other bonus material too. Videos, readings, and detailed written recipes. The link's in the video description below. Starting with the yellow colouring, you need to soak a generous pinch of saffron in hot water and leave for 10 minutes or so. Whilst it's soaking, get on with making the green food colour. Chop up a big bunch of parsley and blend it with a little milk from the pan you've allocated for your green curds. You could, of course, grind up the parsley with the milk inside a mortar with a pestle, which is how a medieval cook would have done it. But I'm being modern today and using my stick blender. So, now place your colours into their respective pans and give them a good stir. Next, add to each pan 2 rashers of streaky bacon that you've snipped into small pieces with a pair of scissors. The form of curry says in the original language to mix the milk with lard idicet, literally diced lard, but this does not mean the rendered pork fat we call lard today, but rather refers to fatty bacon. If you want to know more about this, see my blog post, Language of Cookery 7. The link is in the video description. As an alternative to streaky bacon, you could use lardons, as described in the French recipe in Le Ménagier de Paris, or indeed pancetta, or even Italian lardo. Then season with salt and pepper. Next, you need to beat 4 large eggs. Add these to the milk and give it a good medal, as Form of Curry would put it. Gradually bring your pan to simmering point, constantly stirring. If after a few minutes your curds are being quite lazy in forming, this is not an exact science, then add some white wine vinegar, 1 or 2 tablespoons maximum, and keep stirring for a few more minutes. Adding vinegar actually helps you get more curds out of your milk, and this is what medieval cooks did when making normal egg-free curds, and is what I did when making my medieval cheesecake recipe in my previous video. Once there with the curds, remove from the heat and allow to cool. Repeat the process with your second colour. If you're really brave, you can have 2, 3 or even 4 pans with different colours all on the go at the same time. But nobody likes a show off. Next, strain each pan of egg curds separately through a good sized square of cheesecloth which is sitting inside a sieve over a large bowl. The whey that drains into the bowl can be discarded, though some folk use it as a marinade for meat. Then, gathering and twisting the ends of the cheesecloth, squeeze out all the residual whey. Do make sure the curds are not too hot when you do this. The English recipe says to pressa it hard till it be all out clean. This is important as you want to have the egg curds as dry as possible. It's not something you can rush. As you can see, the curds are now quite crumbly, and I find it's a good moment in the process to fork through the curds in order to distribute evenly the bacon bits, and it also affords you an opportunity to add more seasoning if the curds need it. Next, you take one of the cloths with its strained curds and place it into a container for moulding and pressing your curds. I'm simply using a small Pyrex bowl. Using your fingers, press the curds into the bowl so that the top is flat. Then remove the other curds from their cloth and place them on top of the first layer, pressing them quite firmly. Cover over with the cheesecloth. Now the French recipe says you can give your tightly wrapped portion of curds whatever shape you wish, ou plat ou long, flat or long. Well, I'm going for dome-shaped. It then says to weight it with une grosse pierre, a large rock, and then leave to cool sur une dressure, on a dresser or sideboard, toute nuit, all night. Well, instead of raiding the rockery, I suggest using a plate or, as you see here, an upturned lid from a tub of ice cream, which you place on top of the curds. And then grab whatever you have that is heavy and place this on top. In my case, a tub of pastry beans and a tin of stuffed vine leaves. Ah, a little improvisation is good for the creative spirit. And I hasten to add, and notwithstanding the fact that elite medieval cooks probably had cool larders in which to store perishables, I'm going for the reassuringly modern method of leaving my curds overnight in the fridge. The next day, turn out your compressed larded milk, the literal meaning of let lardes, and taking the sharpest knife you have, carve your creation into slices. Then fry them gently in butter or lard, or, for extra naughtiness, in bacon fat. From frying extra bacon. Then, to present your dish, the French recipe suggests you arrange the slices on a plate comme lèche de lard, like slices of bacon. And for further titivation, you should stick cloves and pine nuts into them. Well, I'm foregoing the cloves and just sprinkling over a few toasted pine nuts. Oh, and serving my let lardes with that side of crispy bacon I alluded to. Oh, and a fried egg. Where's the HP sauce? If you enjoyed this video, why not support my work by buying me a virtual coffee or fruitcake? You can find the link in the video description below.